Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now you join me again out at Oak Lodge where I'm making some additional festive material just to keep you entertained over the midpoint of the winter, just to break up those long dark days which we're all facing in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the southern hemisphere, well, it's summertime, bully for you. So I've got some questions because some of you folks have sent me questions in, and gives me this opportunity to sort of address a number of general questions. So I'll just pick one. I've downloaded a few on here. Let's have a look. So first one is from Duncan, who said, what are your views on duffel coats? I have a vintage Gloverall fawn corduroy example, which was a charity shop find. I don't think it's ever been worn. Congratulations, you've done well. Duffel coats. Well, I had a duffel coat or two when I was a child growing up. They're not something you see quite so often these days, but as a practical outdoor garment, there's a great deal to be said for them. They're called duffel coats because the material used to be made in a place called Duffle, I believe, in Belgium. Don't quote me on that. I lived in Belgium for a couple of years and my pronunciation of things isn't great. But the duffel coat was created, I think, going way back into the 1800s when it was issued to sailors of the Royal Navy. And it is, in essence, a very practical utilitarian garment made of really thick material with very simple fastenings, which there's not a great deal that can go wrong with them, to be honest. You know, large pockets, they normally have a hood, and they can be slipped over other clothing. You know, they tend to be purchased somewhat larger so you can sort of hunker down in them and keep yourself well protected. It's certainly been favoured by the military over the years. British military, First World War, Second World War, particularly the Navy, who need really element-defying clothing because they're facing perhaps the more challenging of the environments in which to operate. A lot of the elements of the garment go back quite some way. The toggle fasteners on them, and there's normally quite a few of them down the front, I believe they can be traced back to Polish origin of frock coats going back many, many years. So there's, even though they're a simple utilitarian garment, there's a lot of heritage and tradition in those garments. As I say, they were worn by some famous people as well. Certainly during the Second World War, if you realise what a duffel coat is, now you cast your mind back to, you know, publicity shots of Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, often seen wearing a duffel coat, and David Stirling, the founder of the Special Air Service, probably the world's first and blueprint for many of the future Special Forces organisations. Because again, these were very practical garments to wear in the desert environment where it's hot in the day, really cold at night, and you want that. It's almost like wearing a blanket swaddled around you to keep you warm. After the war, they became very largely seen on the military surplus circuit, and this is how they sort of got their foothold within the civilian community. So many people would buy World War II surplus coats, duffel coats, and they would become attracted to the practicality of them and then seek them out in the future. And as a result, you know, they were largely made for the civilian population after the Second World War. Gloverall is a heritage British company, still going strong, still making the same original duffel coat. Although it is fair to say they are not a cheap option today. They are really quite expensive. Many different options available, different colours of all types. I've even seen different materials. I've seen a shearling duffel coat as well. So you can go a little bit more stylish and a little bit warmer should you wish to do so. But certainly I quite like them. I mean, I don't own one right now, and it would be great for out here really, to be honest, because it's what you need in the evenings. It's just towards late afternoon right now, starting to go cold. A duffel coat would be ideal for that sort of situation, but you know, not necessarily what I would call a particularly stylish garment. Definitely something interesting, but not, it's not in my collection for a reason, and I don't think I would get enough wear out of one unless I found one for a really great price. And don't forget, probably the most famous wearer of the duffel coat, Paddington Bear. He rocks it, makes it look good. So there we go. Okay, so my next question comes from William, who asks me, I hope this finds you well. Could you please tell me where you obtained the scarf that you were dapperly wearing in your recent video, 5 military habits that can change your life for the better? Could you describe how to tie the scarf? Okay, so this is easy because I'm wearing the same scarf. And this is a Scrim scarf. Now, a lot of people may not be familiar with a Scrim scarf. Let me put that down for a moment. I've got another one here. Now, a Scrim scarf, now this one I'm holding here, was actually issued to me when I joined the Royal Air Force in 1987. All right, that's how old this baby is. The one I'm wearing right now is one I bought, from military surplus store. I only own 2 of them, but I really love them. And in simple terms, it is a metre square of this material, as you can see, right? Scrim material is kind of, I think it's made of cotton or something like that, but there is more holes in it than there is material, as you can see. The idea of it is you can use it as a scarf, as I'm wearing now, or and as often people do, you can throw it over yourself or throw it over your kit, and it breaks up the outline of the person or the equipment that you're carrying. So if you're working as a military person in dense sort of woodland like this, you can use Scrim material not only to keep you warm, but you can drape it over yourself to blur your outline in a sort of natural environment, because, as you know, straight lines stand out in Mother Nature, because Mother Nature doesn't really do much in the way of straight lines. So you can break up the straight lines of your equipment or yourself, or, sort of alter your obviousness in an environment. Because I'm sort of light-skinned, I would stand out in a wood. But by throwing the Scrim over myself, I retain full visibility, but at the same time, my outline and my appearance has been disguised. So that's what a Scrim scarf is. And simply, as I wear it right now, and I can't do it now because I've got my microphone on, but what I'll do at the end, I just put it around my neck, tie it in a simple knot, tuck it in, and that is how it wears. It's as simple as that. I paid, I think, under £5 for this when I purchased it from a surplus store. Or in fact, this one was issued by HM government. The one I'm wearing, I paid £5 for. So, and they last forever. So there you go. It's a Scrim scarf. Now you know. Okay, next question. What have I got here? This is from Rox Amon, who says, can you recommend a double-edged safety razor product for me, please? Certainly I can. So when it comes to the world of double-edged razors, and I've been a DE razor, double-edged, pretty much all my adult life. Went through phases over the years. For a period I used an electric razor, another period I used cartridge razors. When I look back on it now, they were some of my poorest times as a shaver. When I got into the double-edged world, life got a lot easier. I get better shaves, I get cheaper shaves, and I get an enjoyable experience. Honestly, it really is. People say, how can you enjoy shaving? Well, start with a double-edged razor and stick with it for a while until you acquire the skills necessary, and then shaving becomes an enjoyable ritual every morning. But if you're starting off scratch, which I suggest you probably are if you're asking me to recommend a razor from scratch, you don't want to spend a pile of money. Why don't you start with something as simple as a Gillette basic starter razor? I think they're called the C Gillette or something like that. They are under £20. I've seen them for £10 in various stores. They were re-released about 2 years ago released, I think I should say, by Gillette a number of years ago. Now, I know a lot of people don't love the Gillette company because they obviously sell not necessarily the greatest products, but I think their razors, these double-edged razors they sell, the C Gillette razor, really good starting point at a very approachable price. It's chrome, it shaves well, it's a kind of benign shaving experience, because as you might be aware, certain double-edged razors, some will shave very keenly because the aperture where the blade sticks out, that reveal, as we call it in the shaving world, is quite sharp, right? So it allows a lot more of the razor in contact with the skin. The Gillette razor is kind of a very mild shave. It's a great place to start as a young fellow. Now, when it comes to the blade that you put in the razor, that'll have a strong impact on the shaving experience as well. Everybody has got different preferences when it comes to actual blades. I use a Gillette Nasset razor, which I find fairly sharp, but not as sharp as some of the other models like the Feathers blades, but play around. You can order multi-packs from eBay where, razor providers will send you a pack of 20 different separate razors, actual blades. Try them all, see which one you like, and then you can, make that choice going forward. But give it a go, and don't give up after a week or two, because sometimes it really takes a while to get the hang of it. Stick it out, keep trying it, give yourself at least a month, and you will see a positive improvement in your shaving experience. I promise you. Certainly has for me and most of the other folks that I know who have swapped to double-edged razors. Okay, moving on. From Matt D, who says, let's have a look. A question for a future video, if I may. Yes, you may, Matt. Where do you stand on smartwatches, and do you think they have a place in a gentleman's sartorial collection? Well, smartwatches, they perform an amazing function. I own one, right? I don't own an Apple Watch, but I wear a smartwatch when I'm doing an activity, and that's sport, all right? I have a Garmin GPS watch, which I've had for years now, probably about 5 years, and it's a GPS running watch, or cycling or walking, whatever you want to do. For me, that is an invaluable tool as somebody who takes regular physical exercise, and I want to track my performance. Even as an old guy, I like to know how many miles I've run. Am I getting better or worse? Can I try a little harder? Stuff like that. So for me, when it comes to the practical application of a smartwatch, I wear my smartwatch when I'm running or doing sport. What I don't do is wear my smartwatch when I'm dressed smartly, because if I've got my mobile phone with me, as I have now in my back pocket, all right, I see little point in wearing the smartwatch and carrying my mobile phone. Now, I know they both do different things, but largely, they kind of are symbiotic to each other, aren't they? You need the mobile phone really for the smartwatch to be functionally, capable. So I don't think they cut rather a dash with smart clothing either. I mean, it's a not large, but it's a boxy, not necessarily attractive on the eye item. The bracelets or the bands which come with your smartwatches, they're not particularly sartorial either, I would say. So wear one by all means if you're in a functional situation where you need the performance of a smartwatch. But if you're going to an event where you're wearing a suit, take that smartwatch off and wear a nice watch, because I think the modernity of the smartwatch is to a degree incongruous with the traditional nature of a man wearing a blazer or maybe a suit. It doesn't marry very well. Just my opinion. I mean, that says I'm out here now wearing an automatic wristwatch in the woods, so gives you an idea of where I'm all about. And I think we've got time for one more. We don't want to stay longer than we are welcome. Okay, greetings, Ash. This is from Edward Birdsall. It is often noted in your videos that you are something of an amateur horologist. I appreciate your knowledge of watches, and I notice your interest in high-end watches. I am curious of your opinion of the following. An important, well-dressed man is interviewing employees for a promotion. Two very close candidates are in consideration. He notices one is wearing a high-end watch, the other is wearing the Casio. How would this be perceived in the world of the chap? That's a really good question, Edward. And you'll forgive me because your question is about to go up in the ether. There we go. So, there's a couple of points to take here. If you were perhaps in an important job interview, should you wear something really expensive and really classy? That's basically what you're asking me. Or should you wear something which is functionally capable, like everybody's friend, the Casio watch? I think you would need to take the temperature of the situation that you're going into. If you're going into a management level job, all right, so let's say you're going into a job and there's a pretty good salary at stake if you get the job. If you're wearing I'm wearing a Rolex Submariner right now. It's an expensive watch. Obviously, it costs several £1,000s. So it says to the people who are looking at me and maybe seeing my watch and judging it, they might say, this guy is used to earning good money. He has invested some of that money in his appearance, in his timepiece, in his watch. it says something about you. It says you're a serious individual, you think carefully about your purchases, you've invested perhaps in something which is quality driven and actually a fairly good investment. And if you're going into a job which has got a high level salary, that might be something which they would consider to be an appreciable attribute of you as an individual. So I wouldn't have a problem with that if I was going into a job where the salary point would allow you to buy a watch of that nature. I think the problem you might have is if you're going into an entry-level job. Let's say you're going into a job where you're earning quite a low salary, and then you sat there and the guy who's interviewing you, or the female, will look at you and they will see that you're wearing a $10,000 watch, and they're going to think to themselves, oh my word, this guy is wearing a watch which is the equivalent of a third of his annual salary for the job that he's going for. What does this tell them about you? Well, quite aside from the fact you may have inherited it, or it might have been a gift from, a relative who's considerably wealthier than you, people don't know that. So they're just going to draw an inference from what they can see with their eyes. And in a situation like that, I think I would not wear the watch, because you don't want them to think that you're flash. You don't want them to think that you don't really need this job because you've got plenty of money, hence you've invested in a very expensive watch. So play it close to your chest and just don't wear the watch. That's what I would say with an expensive high-end watch. Particularly something as highly identifiable as perhaps a Rolex or an Omega or something of that nature. All right, because it screams, look at me, I've got money. I hate to say I'm desperately sort of steering away from fancy watches like Rolexes myself, and these may be in their last few years with me because my tastes have changed, and I appreciate now that quality and class doesn't necessarily mean flashy. So that's what I would say. If you're going to wear a Casio, same situation and observational points you could apply. If you're going into a job where you're earning $100,000 or £100,000 annual salary and you're wearing a $10 watch, the people interviewing you might have doubts about your credibility, because you're just not living up in their visual impact of you to what they expect for somebody going for that job. It would be far better, I think, not to wear a watch at all than to give these visual cues that you may not be the person that they're looking for. Just take it out of the picture. They can't judge if you don't have a watch on. If you're going for that entry-level job, it's exactly what they would expect a younger employee beginning their journey in the corporate world or whatever world to be wearing. The Casio, can't go wrong with it. Wear it with no problems at all, no worries. You can't be judged on something in that situation. So there we go. Just really take the temperature of the situation you're going in for. If it was me doing the interviewing, I might even make a comment about it. I'd say, I see you wearing a Omega or a Vacheron Constantin. What a wonderful watch. I might make a talking point of it. But just be very careful. I wouldn't judge somebody based on it, because I've got a bit more broad knowledge in my life that wearing a watch doesn't make somebody better than another. But you don't know what's in the mind of the people who may be making decisions on you based on their observations. So take away any potential conflict points and you can't have any issues. So there we go. That was all my questions. They've gone up in smoke. So I think we'll leave it there for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, you can drop me a question or a comment in the comment section. You can send me a question yourself, and maybe I'll be able to feature it on a future video, and you can do that by sending it via an email. If you'd like to support the channel practically, you could buy me a coffee, it's a one-off thing, or you can become a patron. And for a small monthly fee, you get the additional video content which I make for my patrons, and you benefit from the extra dialogue I have on the Patreon pages, which are all accessible in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care of yourselves, and I will see you again very soon.